Hi, I'm Nathan Glass, founder of Glass Insurance. If you're here because you're unfamiliar with the personal umbrella policy, or you've heard of it but you just aren't sure of its value as part of your risk management plan, I'm here to answer some questions for you. Now, before we get into it, let's first define what an umbrella policy is. It's actually very aptly named because it sits on top of each one of your individual insurance policies. Anything that you have in the United States can be listed under one umbrella policy, and it provides additional liability protection. So if you're in an auto accident and the auto insurance liability limits are maxed out, then your umbrella policy can kick in and cover the additional exposure. So that's great conceptually, but that doesn't really do a good job of illustrating why you might need one. And actually, the best way that I can do this for you is to walk you through a scenario that hit really close to home for our agency because one of our clients went through this exact scenario. So this is a client that had been squeaky clean for decades. We're talking about no tickets, no accidents, and then all of a sudden they're in a minor fender bender. The other party had $25,000 worth of medical bills. They tacked on $100,000 worth of loss of wages, but it didn't stop there. They added another $4.2 million worth of pain and suffering. And so my client was facing a $4.3 million lawsuit just as a result of this minor fender bender. So then what happens next? The insurance company is going to try to settle because that's where they get the best results, is settling as opposed to taking this to court. So before they get into the settlement room, they're going to look at two things. The first thing they're going to look at is your auto insurance liability limits and any umbrella policy if you have one. Now, if you're like many people in California, you carry $100,000 worth of bodily injury liability limits on your auto policy. So for that, we're going to use that example for this particular scenario. And the second thing they're going to ask you for is they're going to look at your personal assets. And the reason they're going to ask you for that is because they're your lawyer in this situation. And they need to know what your exposure is and how to mitigate the damage should you need to write a check out of pocket. Now, there are three things that you get to keep in the event of a lawsuit like this. The first thing is you get to keep one car. That's it, one car. You also get to keep $75,000 worth of equity in your home. Your primary residence, we're talking. Any other residence, any other rental properties need to be liquidated. And the third thing is anything that is sitting in a retirement account. The second it starts to come out of that retirement account, it is no longer protected. So if you take your net worth minus those three things, that's what your exposure is if you're in this situation. And the insurance company, they're going to do everything they can to get the other side to come down. And more often than not, they're going to be able to get them to come down from their highest number. But if they're at $100,000, the other side's at $4.3 million, the likelihood of them being able to get the other side to come all the way down to $100,000, so you have $0 out of pocket, is very, very minuscule. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that you don't have to write a check out of pocket, but it may come to that. So if you're in that situation, are you comfortable with what you have, or are you interested in adding that additional coverage? Now, the good news for you is that umbrella policies are extremely inexpensive. They could be a few $100s a year, up to a few $1,000s a year, depending on what sort of assets that you have listed under there. Now, if you have any other questions or you'd like to discuss this further with our team, feel free to reach out to us, give us a call, schedule an appointment, or send us an email, info@glassinsAgency.com, and we'd be happy to set aside the time to discuss it with you. Take care.